How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the eNVision Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Portillo, with my lovely co-host and wife, Lynn Portillo.
Hey, guys.
We're so excited to have you back. Welcome back to another week. Hopefully, everyone had a phenomenal week last week and you executed, you shattered your limits, you ascended. Lynn, we're officially on episode 2 of our podcast, of our new project, and we're so excited. We're so thrilled to be here. Tell me, how was your week this week?
It was a good week. Long, busy, but I'm excited to be recording. We are finally going to get into the deep topics of our podcast, so I'm just excited to start the conversation.
Perfect. What was something that was super exciting about your week? Okay, let's do this. Let's do our peaks and valleys.
Okay.
What was a peak of your week? What was a valley of your week?
I would say a peak of my week was Rhaegar is just walking in his crib. He is supporting himself like no other. He doesn't want to play with any toys. He just wants to stand all the time, which is adorable. It's crazy how fast they grow. I guess a valley would be...
And if you don't have any valleys, that's fine too. Don't forget that.
I'm a little sleepy. Rhaegar is not sleeping much. He's enjoying a good playtime in the middle of the night. He likes to roll around and kick Alex in the face.
He does.
But it's okay.
He does. The other night, when he'll sleep on his crib, and then in the middle of the night, Lynn will move him over to our bed for a little bit, and he will lay, in between Lynn and I, but then he decides to not be comfortable, and he'll roll over to Lynn and hug her, and then he'll roll over to me and hug me, but then he's uncomfortable, so then he starts doing like a 360 spin, and then before you know it, he's parallel, and we make like a little H. Lynn and I are the legs of the H, and then he's the I guess the crossbar, or I don't know what I'm trying to say, the center of the letter H, and it always ends without fail where his feet are in front of my face, and then some point in the middle of the night I just feel something either kick my stomach, my chin, or my face, and so that has been our journey. Excuse me, that has been our journey the last couple of weeks. So I think those are very good peaks and valleys.
Yeah, what about you?
So for me, I guess before I go into mine, for those of you that don't know, Rhaegar is our firstborn child. He's our son. And we will get into his story later on. But all you need to know right now is that he has the greatest name ever. I say that very humbly. I say that very biasly. Okay? He is named after 3 different fandoms that we love. And I can't express my gratitude to Lynn enough for her willing to name our son his name. And I didn't have to do a lot of convincing. I just came to her one day and I said, hey, we should name our son this name. And she was like, oh, I love it. Okay, let's do it. So his name is Rhaegar Itachi Portillo. And if you spell out his initials, it's RIP, R-I-P. And so the fandoms that he's named after after Rhaegar Targaryen from Game of Thrones. Itachi, after Itachi Uchiha from Naruto, our favorite anime. Portillo, my last name, my family last name. And then the initials RIP are Rip Wheeler from Yellowstone. So we have a lot of different fandoms there, fantasy, anime, and then Western.
Yeah.
So you know what? That I will take that as my peak of the week, is the fact that I still get to boast about his name and tell the story of how Lynn was so cool with the idea and I appreciate her willingness to think outside the box here. Me personally, like I said, biasly, I think anytime, if he plays sports, which that's something that we are very adamant about, is we want our children, right now Rhaegar, but future children too, to do 3 things for sure. We want them to play a sport. It doesn't matter what sport. We just want them to stay active, and we want to expose them to all different kinds of sports until they find something that they really like.
Teamwork, discipline, lots of things.
Correct. We want them to play an instrument, something that Lynn and I both regret. I think Lynn's a little bit better at this than I am, but we both regret not sticking to an instrument or not practicing as much as we should. In my elementary school and middle school years, I played the violin, and I was decent at it. I think I was pretty decent at it, and I just didn't stick with it. Lynn knows the guitar, the violin, the banjo, the piano, so she has a lot of musical talent in her arsenal.
Lots of taught myself music, so it's not the same.
Correct, but you also, you don't practice as much. You've been practicing a lot more lately, and it's been great
And
seeing
we have
her.
the guitars right there.
Correct, it's been great seeing her practice with Rhaegar, and he gets, interactive with her, which is awesome. But we want to be very intentional with our children playing an instrument.
I'd love for him to play the drums.
Yep.
That'd be so cool.
I've always wanted to play the drums.
Band.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Family band. I can't sing though. I try to, but I can't sing. So we have sports, we have instrument, and then the last one is a martial art. Lynn is a black belt in Aikido. Spoiler alerts. So watch out for her. I did judo when I was younger. I only got to, I think, orange belt. Yeah, I think it was orange belt. I was like really young when I did this. And that was another one of those things where I wish I would have stuck to it. There's just a lot of skills, in my opinion, in our opinion, that you can learn through those three things: discipline, consistency, working hard, being creative. So those are three things that we're very passionate about that we want our children to do as part of them growing up, right? So anyways, to circle back where we started, that is my peak is our son. I love him very, very much. I love spending time with him. On the weekends, one of my favorite things to do is when he starts getting fussy is picking him up, and I know it's ready for his nap time, and I'll start, rocking him and cradle him, and he'll fight sleep for a good 2-5 minutes. And then finally you just start seeing him kind of like rub his eyes and yawn, and then he starts snuggling in with you. And when he starts snuggling in with you, that's the best feeling in the world. And then he falls asleep. And then what I'll do is I'll either lay on the recliner with him, or I'll lay on the bed with him, or I'll put him on his crib if I've got chores to do or something else to do. But I do stay intentional about being present and being with him, on a daily basis. It doesn't matter if it's a couple minutes or an hour. I try to be intentional with him daily, but definitely on those weekends spend a lot more time with him, and that's what I absolutely enjoy doing. So yeah, that's my peak. My valley, let me see. I think the week was pretty good overall. I keep saying this all the time. I am blessed. I feel very blessed. But I think if I had to pick a valley, I would say I'm consistent and disciplined in certain areas of my life, but then there are other areas of my life that I'm not consistent and disciplined in, and that being my diet. Recently I tried the carnivore diet, and I did it for 32, 35 days, I can't remember consistently, where for those of you that know the carnivore diet, you're really just only eating animal byproducts, so meat, eggs, dairy, cheese, things like that. So anything animal byproduct, no carbs, or very little carbs that are in the meats that you're eating, and you're really just focusing on protein and fat basically. So it took a little bit of time for my stomach to adjust, but once it adjusted, I felt really good. You saw me, I had a lot of energy. I could hit the gym still really consistently and have the same kind of energy and drive I would, and I lost a lot of weight. I lost about 18 pounds, and I was well on track to hitting my goal of getting to 180 by my birthday. But then what happens is I take a little break, and maybe you guys can relate to this if this is something that happens to you, but you do something consistently and you take a little break, and then it gets really difficult to get back on.
There's no moderation. It's just either a diet or, I can just indulge.
Correct. And so she's calling me out on it. This is why our second subject is communication. But, she's calling me out on it because it's true. I sometimes have the bad habit of either going all in. I have the bad habit of going all in, either for it or not for it. There's really no moderation, no middle ground. So when I broke my diet, I broke it pretty slowly because I didn't want to, ruin my stomach. But after about 3 days of slowly introducing carbs back in, that fourth day, I went all in. I mean, we had fast food, we had Chinese food, we had sushi. We didn't go to Korean barbecue, but we had sushi. And then it was just a carb overload. So what happens? Quickly go figure, you gain that weight back. And the hardest thing, one of the hardest pills to swallow, is one of my mentors says, you don't want to say you want to lose weight, because when you lose things, you tend to go find them. You want to say release.
I like that.
And so, when you say you're going to release weight, release 10 pounds, 5 pounds, 15 pounds, whatever, you want to release it and never find it again.
Let it go.
Let it go forever. In this case, I lost weight because I went and found it again and then some. So that is in a long story. My valley, is not sticking consistent to my diet. And now we're back to where we don't want to be.
I also will take responsibility, and I made cinnamon sugar swirl bread for like 3 weeks in a row, and he has no moderation skills, so it was like, hey, can you make me a slice with butter? And I also made homemade butter, so I'm making this homemade sourdough cinnamon sugar bread with homemade butter, and he's like, hey, I want a slice. Oh, can you make me one more slice? Oh, how about one more slice? And it was just the snack throughout the day. He went through a whole loaf in 2 days.
I did. And it's, as I sit here and kind of reflect on it, I probably have this kind of guilty look up to my face right now. Yeah, I did do that. And it was like, I don't know, I would say every 2 hours I was asking you for a slice of bread. So
that one was my bad. I didn't make it this week.
Okay. Yes, it was your fault in the sense that you made the delicious bread, but it's also more my fault because I don't have that self-control, so I don't want you to feel guilty about it because she loves to bake, and that's something that she started doing a lot more recently. Lynn's been on a sourdough kick. She created her own starter and has been feeding that thing since a little bit before the beginning of the year, so we're going on a little over 3 months plus now, and she's made a lot of great recipes with it.
I'm making bagels today.
Yes, and so I'm excited to try one of those. You guys have to hold me accountable to that, one of those. But you've been able to share that passion with others in our lives, and that's been really cool. I mean, you've probably given your starter to 5, 6 different people, and they've tried their own recipes, and now they've taken it to their families and have passed it on and have shared their starter. And it's cool just to see it all relate back to your starter, you know what I mean? And it's just cool to be able to pass along that knowledge and share it with people that we love and share something that you love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love making bread. It's my new favorite hobby. It's on my vision board, though. That was like one of my number one things was a lot of recipes with like the traditional way of making food. Yeah. We have not bought bread from the store since I started making it.
Yeah, this is true.
So cool.
This is true because you've made olive sourdough. You've made jalapeno cheddar sourdough. Cinnamon roll. Have you made rosemary?
Yeah, I did a rosemary garlic one.
Yes, that one was a really good one. You'll hear me say this from time to time. I love rosemary. Anything with rosemary in it, I love. And I always like to say that rosemary is the one woman that's never done me wrong. And Lynn laughs at that.
I think she hasn't done any of us wrong. It's okay.
She's done me wrong in the past, which we'll get to that here shortly. And wow. I'm just kidding.
I don't think communication has that badly yet. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, cool. No, happy to be back. I'm super excited for us to jump into our next topic. So go ahead and let us know. What are we discussing today? What are we going to go? What are we going to discuss?
So today, I really thought it was important that we focus on communication. Okay. And communication can have a lot of things involved in it. So the first thing is creating that safe space. Okay. I think we don't...
That's important.
Yeah, it's really important because we don't create that space in most arguments. You come in hot, you're pissed off, you're saying terrible things, and if someone's yelling at you or you're really just like energies are raised, you're not going to have that comfortable space to say like your true opinions, what's actually bothering you, how you're feeling. So it's really important to be able to create that safe space for both parties because it's different gender-wise as well to what that safe space should look like and what each of our jobs are to create that safe space for each other.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. Definitely safe space is a term that I don't think we've used a lot before we've learned the application of the word in relationships. Yeah. I think that we've either known that we need to make it an environment where it's okay to discuss whatever the subject is, and we've had to struggle through that a lot because there have been times where, excuse me, there's been times where if you can recall at the very beginning of our relationship, we would get into an argument or we'd get into a disagreement. And this was back when I will admit that I didn't have the best control over my emotions or know how to process my emotions. As you said before, I'm your first boyfriend, I'm your first relationship, I'm your first anything. So I think that there was a lot of things that you were experiencing for the first time as well, which I would love for you to give your perspective on that when we get there. But I remember that there were times where you and I would disagree and we'd get into a heated argument and I'd walk out and you'd follow me.
Yeah.
And I would get very irritated, and to the point where I'd turn around and be like, stop following me, leave me alone. I need my space. I need my time away from you right now because we can't discuss it right now.
Yeah.
And Lynn was very adamant about, no, we need to resolve this right now. And so I'm very curious, how many of you have been in that situation where on either side, either her side or my side, where you're going through a discussion with, your significant other, your spouse, your friend, whoever, and it gets elevated and one of you walks away, but then the other one wants to resolve it right then and there in the moment and doesn't recognize what those cues are, or both of you don't recognize what those cues are for each other. Let's pause there and let's talk about that a little bit. What was going through your mind in those instances, if you can recall? I mean, we're talking now 10 years ago, but...
Yeah. But I think it's still something you have to practice. I mean, we all have our natural reaction to things. So even now, I guess I have to separate myself from the situation. Because back then, when you would say you would walk away, to me, I would automatically go like, oh, he's going to break up with me. Or I get offended by the fact that you don't want to talk to me. Like, I'm not worth your time to even resolve it. Like, you just don't care. And really, it's that he's trying to step away so he doesn't say something he's going to regret. But for me, I took it like, oh my gosh, something terrible is going to happen. He's going to break up with me. We're never going to get this resolved. All the things go through your head, especially when you're in a relationship for the first time. I've never had any conflicts like that. I've only had conflicts with friends. I didn't handle those well either, obviously, going homeschool, and with my parents, which we've always had really good open communication. And I guess with my parents, we never left things unresolved either. So it's probably a learned trait, as like you have to finish it in the moment. Otherwise, something's wrong.
Okay. So then... I want to touch upon what you just said too, is that I would walk away because I didn't want to say anything that I would regret or something that, wouldn't do the situation anything good. To your point, yes, I would say that the majority of that was correct. That is the reason why I walked away. I think the other reason why I walked away too is just because I didn't know what I wanted. Because a lot of the times what we discussed, or not discussed, I should say, what we would disagree on or what we argued on was our opinions at that time of what was important in our future. And so I know if I remember that I came to a crossroads basically where, okay, here's where I'll start. I'll be vulnerable already right off the get-go. But that was a time in my life where I had gone through a couple relationships already in the past. I was, 19, 20, 21. I wasn't necessarily looking for marriage right then and there. But keep in mind, I was just turning 21, or I just turned 21. And so all of a sudden I see where our relationship is going. And I start seeing everything that could lead to, you're the last woman I date. That could lead to my life changing in a direction that I wasn't sure if I was ready for.
Get the chains on you, tying you down.
There it is. But yes, so, I may be dancing around it, but I was insecure, is ultimately what I'm trying to say, is that I was insecure about our relationship. I was insecure about myself and what I wanted out of our relationship and what I wanted at that time in my life. And so a lot of the times why we actually argued was because I started the argument. And I realized that the reason why I started the argument is for two things. Well, I just said one of them. I guess it's three things. But the other two are, I didn't know how to communicate with you properly. And then for myself, I didn't know how to communicate with myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what direction I wanted to go. So it was just a time period, a season in our life where it was just a lot of confusion and a lot of self-doubt. But I do want to talk about how we overcame that. So from your perspective, can you share where you think things started getting better and what ultimately helped us get better?
So I think there was a big turning point in our relationship where just in general it got better. And that was when you decided that you wanted to marry me. Because then random fights and things wouldn't just come up. We honestly really stopped fighting when you made that decision. Because also I don't like conflict, so I will not start a fight willingly.
She doesn't.
He'll know if I'm bothered and then bring it up, but I'm rarely am I just like, hey, we need to talk this out, unless it's really serious. But I think it really, once we decided we wanted to be together forever, once you decided you wanted me, because I'm the marrying type, and that was a little scary, we were able to be very conscious of what we're doing, our action-wise in conflict. So what I mean by that is he made sure to tell me, don't follow me. Let me cool off. And I had to practice that like no other. It was just, that was what I was thinking. We're arguing. He walks over to the other room. I'm sitting there on my hands like, don't get up, but don't follow. And it's hard. Like, that sounds so simple, don't follow him out. But for me, leaving something unresolved, that's like a stress, and it's going to bother me.
So why do you think that that's a stress, or why do you think that that's so important for you to resolve things in that moment?
I was always told, which is another thing, don't go to bed angry. And
I was told the same thing, by the way.
yeah, good. That's good advice from our parents and stuff. Don't go to bed angry because you just never know what the next day will bring you.
Or may not bring you.
Yeah. So you don't know.
May not wake up.
It's true. And from my experience, I've dealt with a lot of loss in life, very, very young. And I don't want to take that chance of something being left unsaid or not resolving a problem with each other. And I think I just always have that doubt in the back of my head, like I'm not good enough, which is insecurities as well of he could just leave me like at any moment. Because when we did have that one big fight, it was like out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it, even though I should have. I'm just gullible, obviously. I didn't know you were going to propose either.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? Like that creates that doubt in my head. So I'm just like, life can change at any moment's notice anyway. So is this going to be the one fight that ends it all? You don't know.
Correct.
So it scares me when you have to kind of sit in that discomfort of what is the other person thinking? What are they deciding? How are they wanting to move forward?
Yeah. No, I think you brought up some really good points. And to give a little bit more context, when Lynn was saying that things changed for us, because I want to give my perspective on when I think things started getting better, is I agree. It was when I officially decided and told, I guess, myself that you are the one for me. And I got over that fear of what my life could look like if I settled down at that time.
Yeah.
To be honest, as silly as this sounds, and this is a story for a different time, Lynn and I broke up one time during our dating relationship, and it was for less than 24 hours. And all you need to know right now is it was a lot of what I just said earlier. My own insecurities and my own fault for just being insecure and not knowing what I wanted and not being able to communicate what I wanted to either her or myself. And so when I finally realized and admitted to myself that you are the best woman for me, that I'm not going to find anyone better than you for my life, I started looking at her. I was looking at her for everything negative she brought into my life. I was looking at her for everything I thought I was going to be missing out on and everything that I wasn't going to be able to do anymore. And then I actually read an article. And the funniest thing, it was an article, God's timing, as I always say, is divine. I read it on Facebook, and it really related to what you and I were going through at that time. And basically what the article was describing is stop looking at your partner, your spouse. I can't remember what the word it used. I think spouse or partner, either one. Stop looking at your significant other, may actually have been that one, for everything negative that they bring into your life. Look at your significant other for everything positive they bring into your life, for everything that they help contribute to your life, and everything that they help better in your life. And when I read that, I started thinking, and I started really resonating with it. And I said, okay, I've been able to accomplish more things than I've done in the past because of your support. I've been able to try different things with less fear because of your support and because of who you are in my life. And so it started really clicking for me, so to say. And at that moment, I really started looking at you for everything positive and no longer the negative things that you brought into my life. And that day I chose to choose you every single morning. That was actually how the story ended, or the story ended, was always remember the positive that your significant other brings into your life, and always remember to choose them. So to this day, I'm not joking when I say this, to this day I still wake up every single morning, and when I look at you, if I've beaten you up, I look at you and I say, I choose you. Lynn, like a Pokemon.
Don't
I choose
throw a
you.
Pokeball at me. Side note, I said this in the Anime Note podcast, it is so mean that they throw those Pokeballs at people. So you can press it and I'll hop in.
You shouldn't watch the episode I watched earlier than Pokemon Horizons. But anyways, I wake up every single morning. I choose you. And I think from there is where our communication really started changing, because here's where I want us to go into next. And what we started with is creating that safe space. Once I started recognizing you for all of those positive things, it was so much easier to communicate with you. And it was so much easier to come from a point in a position of love and care versus a position of fear and insecurity. And so the next question I have for you is, who were some of the influences in our life at that time that helped us understand the importance of communication and setting that foundation, setting that, setting the room, setting the environment to have, either intimate, crucial, constructive, or just difficult conversations?
Yeah. Well, I think we have a few main kind of influences. I would say Eric Thomas and his married conversations that he had, and he introduced hot communication.
So it wasn't Dr. Thomas, actually. So it was I just drew a blank. Continue. I'll remember the name right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Quest Green.
Yes.
Green. Shout out to Quest Green. He's the one who introduced the concept of hot communication. So go ahead. What is that?
Hot communication is honest, open, and transparent conversation.
Ooh.
Which, it sounds, hot communication, that's a really good play with words for a marriage, obviously.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure you have all three of those, so you create that safe space, because you're coming in there honest with what you're going to share, open to be able to receive what the other person is going to be giving you, and transparent, you're not hiding anything.
Agreed.
All of those are really important factors to having that communication. And I would say, just in general, I think you making that decision on it being us, you really stepped forward in creating that safe space for me to have trust. And I think I really was able to copycat you and practice that to create a safe space for you. So you definitely really took the lead on that, because my trust was a little gone for a while, and I was afraid to speak up, but you would ask me, how am I feeling, but really pay attention, not just I'd say I'm fine, and be like, oh yeah, me too. Or you ask more questions. The 5 whys, if you say, if you will, he likes to just, oh, why? But dig deeper, which is really helpful. So it's not just that generic, how are you doing? It's really getting to, oh, what was it that made you feel this way?
Agreed.
And I tried to implement that as well, which helped me create that safe space for you, I felt. But I wanted to give you the credit for really opening that safe space.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that you hit it spot on. And one thing that Lynn and I did at this time was really invest in self-development. Now, Lynn threw a couple names out there, and one of them being Dr. Eric Thomas. For those of you who don't know him, Dr. Eric Thomas is the #1 motivational speaker in the world. He's a mentor of ours that we followed on YouTube. Well, I've been following on YouTube since high school, since 2010 or 2009 when I first discovered his videos. And I followed him all through high school, a little bit in college, and then kind of, lost track and fell off, so to say. I didn't keep up with him. And then in our relationship, when I was going to the gym again and working out again, I started listening to him a lot more because he's a motivational speaker, and a lot of his content is just really gets you amped up.
Yeah.
And once I started listening to him more and more, I started to look into him more and look into what books he's done, looked at his website. And through his website, I discovered that he has a coaching program for self-development. And so I bought the program for Lynn and for myself. And through that program, we've met some incredible people. I'm so excited to share more about them later on, but one of the cool things that we were exposed to in that program is the marriage program that Dr. Thomas has, which is the Thank God I'm Married program, which was also led by Quest Green. And so through our time in the programs that we did through them, we've learned so much. One of them, like you said, is the hot communication. And so I remember, I think it was our very first conversation after we heard that through one of the live coachings. And I think we were having lunch. If I recall, we were having lunch, and we were talking about our recent move. Because at that time, we had just moved to Texas.
Yeah.
And so we were, I want to say, 3-4 months living in Texas.
Yeah, not long.
And although we really enjoyed what we were building, I think we both felt a little bit of homesickness or just missed a lot of the people that we had back home, our family, our friends, the life we left behind there. And I remember asking you how you were doing, because you dropped everything. You dropped your entire life to move for an opportunity for me and for my career. And I know I've said thank you for this in the past, but I want to say thank you again, because that was a big decision. I mean, you really went for it. And I think I can speak for both of us where I say that was one of the best decisions you and I have ever made, because it helped us grow so much as individuals and in our relationship.
Yeah, especially with that communication factor, because this was just us. We only had each other, so we really had to have that communication.
Correct.
If we didn't, it would have been probably one of the worst times for us. But because we were able to do these self-developments, we were able to we found our faith, which also helped with that communication. I think really developed us and let us use all that time to the best of our ability, where we were doing the 75 hard challenge. We were getting the best shape we could. We decided to have a kid. Like, that whole journey in Texas made us so much better and stronger as a couple. So in coming back, we had grown and changed so much. Nevada was like, we didn't recognize it even coming back, because we were seeing it from a different perspective.
Agreed. I completely agree. And so with that, where do you feel the responsibility lies on creating that safe space? Do you feel it's more the man's job or the woman's job in the relationship?
I wouldn't say I'd put it on either one, but
Okay.
you really took the lead, and as like the man of the house, that's really your responsibility, is to lead us. And when we were in Texas, you led us into the 75 hard challenge. You led us into fitness, and I followed along with you. So you were kind of that inspiration of making me become better myself, because you were the one wanting to do the self-development and improve on yourself, which made me want to follow along, because obviously I don't want to be stuck behind like eating bad food and being unhealthy and not being able to carry a baby for us like down the road. So I think it is really wise for the man to start that because you kind of guide the family and initiate those important moves that can help bring everyone up. But I don't want to put that responsibility on it because it goes both ways. Because especially for men, because you have that role, it's really hard to be vulnerable and open up, especially in today's society. You're always meant to be strong, the breadwinners, really holding everything together, and being vulnerable is something you, like you said, you didn't know how to have those types of conversations with me before because you're not taught that. You don't learn, hey, how can I cry to my wife tonight about the struggles I'm having at work? That's you come home and smile and say work was great even if you were miserable.
Yeah.
And you pay all the bills even though you maybe have a couple $100 left for like the month. So as a woman in the relationship, you need to really help keep that safe space too. You have a massive responsibility for the man to be comfortable to even open up and share to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's deep because as I sit here and think about it, I know that I just mentioned that when we first started talking about or using hot communication, it was for that conversation where I checked in on you and how things were going. And I remember feeling very, I mean, the right word is insecure because I wasn't sure if I was coming off too strong, if it was a conversation you wanted to have, or if I was just misreading. And I remember using kind of like a soft voice to you and just kind of asking, hey, we've been here for a couple months now. How are you feeling? And I think actually this is what I did do. I remember that I gave you an example first. And I said, hey, how are you feeling with the move? Are you missing your mom and dad? Talk to me. What's going on? What's going through your mind? For me, I do miss home. I do miss home because, my parents are there, my siblings are there, our friends are there. We had a whole life there. I miss the mountains. We're big hunters. We're big fishers. We love to be outdoors. And being outdoors in Texas is completely different than being outdoors in Nevada.
Dangerous.
It is dangerous.
I mean, I've been in dangerous situations in Nevada for sure. But that's like an obvious danger in Nevada. I saw a mountain lion. You'll probably hear that story eventually. Like this close to me. But obvious, dangerous. You go out in Texas, you walk between trees and there's spider webs the size of your body with spiders the size of your hand.
Or if you're Lynn, you step out of the truck and don't look down before stepping out of the truck and step in an anthill.
While going to church, I had flats on. You guys, I still have scars.
I've never seen her dance so fast.
Oh.
Unintentionally in her life. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So that was like one of the cons I shared while he asked me this question of how I'm feeling in our hot conversation.
Yes, but there, that's how it started was I just asked you, how are you doing? I gave an example for myself, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that my vulnerability and my willingness to be open kind of helped set that room and set that mood for you of that safe space to say, okay, if my husband is able to be vulnerable and he's telling me how he feels, then it's okay for me to express how I felt. And so, do you mind if you recall, do you mind sharing, what you said or what you can remember?
I don't think I can remember like the exact conversation, but it definitely gave me that space to not feel guilty if I wasn't really enjoying everything.
And at that time, were you enjoying it or no?
I think I was really excited after the first few months, but it was a big adjustment. I had never even moved out of my parents' house yet. So I had only ever lived at home until I was married, and then we were married for a year and moved out. So that was already just a big step, and moving out, just in general is a big step, but I moved states. And I had my job, but it wasn't really working out being remote from there. So it was a little difficult to balance. And we had our dogs and we were in an apartment. So I've never been in that kind of setting. So it was difficult. And I'm definitely very, my mood depends on nature, which it sounds silly, but I need mountains. I need to be able to go outside. And if I can't really go outside because there's a bunch of people around in the apartments and there's scary animals and bugs and it's like tropical forest out there.
Yeah.
And it's 100 degrees and humid with no snow.
Yeah.
Or a hurricane. It was
we
a
had
lot.
to go through one of those. And it was only a category 1 and I was terrified, to say the least.
People who go through those, you guys are so tough. Who are like, oh, we're fine, category 3, I don't need to leave. You guys are the real ones because I bought our dogs life vest because I was like, what if they need to swim?
And they know how to swim. No, and that's the funny thing is that they know how to swim. But you know what?
But they're going to get tired with the waves and the wind.
You know what's hilarious is I remember being at work and she sends me a picture. Oh no, this was for the tornado. So this was totally different.
Well, it was like both.
This was totally different. But this was a year later with the tornado. But either way, listen, for those of you in the Midwest and southern United States, anywhere that there's hurricanes or tornadoes, my hat's off to you. Okay, my hat's off to you because here in Nevada, we deal with earthquakes from time to time. Nothing I mean, I guess we get a lot of earthquakes. We just don't feel them. They're very small.
Yeah.
But having to deal with panic buying and people just panicking in general for a hurricane or an earthquake for supply, or it's not an earthquake, a hurricane or a tornado for supplies, it was insane. It was insane. Like, I would see things on the news from Nevada of like these bigger cities, and I always thought like that's crazy. I can't believe people don't act like that, or whatever. But then I go and experience it for myself, and yes, people do act like that.
It's
and
crazy.
and if it's either move or get moved,
Mm-hmm.
or get it or get out of the way kind of mentality over there when that stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was an experience to live through. Definitely am grateful because it just exposed us to more of life and different situations that helped us grow, right? And helped us grow. And so I really just want to circle back and think that thank Dr. Thomas and Quest and everyone in the group, all the mentors, all the relationships that we've built and have made and maintained, because they have helped us become better communicators. I think that even most recently, you and I had a disagreement the other day, and I wasn't reading your emotions and I wasn't reading your state of mind at that time correctly. And sometimes, guys, back me up here. You ask your lady, is anything wrong? And they say no, but they say it in a tone, and you're like, okay, no, something is wrong. So you continue to ask, and now maybe there wasn't anything. In this case, there wasn't anything, but because I kept asking, I made it something, and then it turned into a whole disagreement. But we were able to, walk away. I was able to cool off. Lynn was able to cool off. We were able to come back together. And I really respect the fact that you were able to say, listen, I appreciate you asking, but in that moment, there was nothing I wanted to talk about. There was nothing that I wanted to say. There's nothing that I wanted to discuss. And I need you to trust me in those moments. And we can come back and talk about it if there's something that we need to discuss. If I'm saying that there's nothing that we need to discuss, I promise you we're fine. Like we have that kind of relationship where you should know that we're fine. And that really hit me. I was like, whoa, who's this? Who's this? Okay.
But I think us ladies also really need to stop the I'm fine, but it's not fine. We're creating this safe space so you don't do that. And I think it's just a common thing that all guys say. Oh, she says I'm okay, I'm fine. Something's wrong. Like, stop doing that.
Yeah. Because
it creates those issues. And it's a stereotype that's always joked around about. But why? Yeah. It's totally unnecessary. If you're not fine, just say, I'm not good right now, but I don't want to talk about it.
Correct.
And you can create that, end point where you don't, you both mutually agree, yeah, you're bothered, something's really pissed me off, but I do not have the space to talk about it right now because I'll cry or get mad or say something I will regret. But don't say I'm fine and then harbor those feelings and then take it out on him the rest of the week because he doesn't know what he did wrong. So even it's you bothered me so much today, you just didn't understand how I was feeling. I'm really upset, but I cannot discuss it right now because I'm going to be rude. even just saying that, he's just going to be like, oh man, okay, like, I'll be here when you're ready to talk.
Correct.
But he won't be like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And then you'll get even more mad.
Yeah. And from a guy perspective, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. But I do want to believe that from a guy perspective. If ladies, if you just tell us, hey, exactly what you just said, I am frustrated, but I don't want to talk about it right now. At least now we know that there's a discussion that needs to happen later on. But it's the, no, I'm fine, no, I'm fine, no, I'm fine, knowing that you're not fine. And then an hour, a day, a week later, well, do you remember that time that you said this to me and then this, and you're like, whoa, what just happened? This is, we're not even discussing about this. I was just asking you, what do you want to eat?
Yeah, it comes back out. That's why you need to not harbor those feelings, address it, move on, have a conversation later, have it then. But that just creates so much tension too, and it's unnecessary. It creates fights over the tiniest things, like you didn't pick up your clothes or you left the dishes going. But those aren't normally big problems.
Correct.
It's when they build up that there's no communication.
And I think that there's one key element that we're missing for setting the room and having intentional and having really good conversation, and that is humility. Humility to be able, have enough humility to accept when you're wrong, and have enough humility to say, I'm sorry. Because those are, in a relationship, I believe that those are two of the hardest words to say at times. There's times where I say it to you, and I know it's a hard pill to swallow for me, but it's not that I'm just trying to check, it's not that I'm just trying to check off a box, but I think that also helps deepen and grow the relationship and grow the communication, because even if in your eyes I don't have to say sorry, I'm sure that if when I say sorry and I genuinely mean it, and you see that I genuinely mean it, you're like, okay, cool. Like, it just, I don't know, I think there's something about the human body, the way God created us, the way he created our mind, that when someone says sorry and they genuinely mean it, it's like, okay, not necessarily, I guess all is forgiven, may not be forgotten or whatever, depending on what it is. But what I'm trying to say is that having the humility to accept your mistakes, having the humility to say I'm sorry, goes a long way in building relationship, in building trust, to communicate, because communication is all about trust, in my opinion.
It is. If you don't trust that person, there's no way you're going to be comfortable sharing anything. And I really like that you brought in humility, because we do need to humble ourselves in all different types of situations, because we always want to think that we're right. We always work to defend ourselves in any kind of conflict. And when you have this kind of communication, you're not going in to defend yourself. And I actually wanted to read a verse from the Bible that kind of relates to that. I think it's really important. Let me find it here. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. And that's James chapter 1, verse 19. And I think that's really important, because it says swift to hear. You are there to listen. You are not there listening to defend or listening to answer.
That's key. That's key, because active listening, are you actively listening because you are, no, how do they say it? Active listening, what am I trying to say here? Let me think about it. Exactly what you just said. Are you listening to actually listen, or are you listening to defend? Because many times we listen to defend.
Yeah,
You're
you
just
already
waiting.
know what that response
Correct.
is.
Correct. I mean, and you can even use this example right now. You were talking, and I kind of cut you off because I was just listening to jump in.
Too.
You know what I mean? So that's an example. Go for it. Sorry.
And then it says slow to wrath. So slow to speak, slow to wrath. So you're listening. It doesn't mean you need to respond the second they're done. Actually take in what they were saying. Like, you're in an interview. When you're getting asked those questions, you don't have an answer right away. You're thinking about the example you're going to give. That's what you want to do. You want to show that much respect to your partner as you would someone you're trying to work for, Why would we show these strangers more respect than you show your partner? So you're listening to them, taking it in, waiting, pausing, giving them that space, and then you're going to give back like a genuine response.
Yeah.
And slow to wrath, you're not just going to be angry the second they speak. They're trying to be honest with you, and sometimes honesty hurts.
Yeah.
It hits you in those buttons. It stabs you where it counts most of the time. If it's good conversation, you're going to probably cry a little or you're going to be a little hurt during it, but it's creating that safe space and knowing it's coming from respect and a genuine want of resolving the issue and making things better.
Yeah. That's deep. That's deep. And we in my opinion, when I say we, it's everyone, including us, by any means, we're not perfect. We underutilize the value of the Bible. There is so much power and so much wisdom in the words of God in the Bible, the words of Jesus in the Bible. I have yet to find something that I'm dealing with or an issue that I'm going through that I cannot find the answers to in the Bible. And so I really appreciate you bringing that perspective to the podcast today and sharing that with us.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just kind of like the guide to life that we don't think about. We read all these self-help books, but
100%.
all the answers are in here. It takes a little bit to read. You have to find your ways around it. This part was really talking about is talking about communication and how you want to work to be in better relationships per God's standards. And I think we can just use it I have a bunch of other verses marked in here, but you use them as a reference point to how you should be living your life. And we try to do that with our marriage, so that's just a verse that kind of explains specifically communication.
Yes. No, I agree. And that's beautiful. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. So, I mean, we talked about a lot today.
Yeah.
We talked about communication, hot communication, and the importance of that, right? So here are the action steps that we want you guys to take from here. Is communication starts with intention. Okay, I think that's the most important. That's one of the most important things. You can't have a communication if you don't want to if you're not intentional about it. From there, you have to set the room. You have to set the foundation, set the safe space of the communication that you want to have with your partner, your friend, your parents, whoever you want to have this conversation with. And then from there, you want to lead with empathy, humility, right? That's going to help you get into our acronym, HOT communication. So having honest, open, and transparent conversation. I think that right there is a really good foundation to have in your arsenal, in your tool belt, to have good conversations with people.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, we're going to talk to people in some way, shape, or form. And what we're about in this podcast is to help you grow those relationships. And we can't go into the other topics that we want to discuss without really helping set the foundation for communication, because it all starts with that.
It really does. Yeah, and that's why we wanted to start with these specific tips, because if you want to handle any other problems in a relationship, you have to be able to create that safe space. And even just asking simple questions, you could do icebreaker style questions just to practice, because you don't have to go right in and say, we need to talk about finances right now. I'm creating that safe space, hot communication. That's how you don't start a conversation.
Don't do that.
You want to make sure that you're practicing this before you're going into those serious conversations, because you don't want to just hop in. You want to make sure that trust is built up. We didn't just go into crazy conversations, deep things. He asked me how I was feeling about the move, and from there it circled into what growth do we want to do, what problems are we seeing. So all these steps will help you get to that point to where we're going to be discussing even further a lot harder conversations. This is just the beginning, and it already can be a little difficult.
This is just the beginning to an amazing ride that we're all going to take together. So here's our challenge to you this week. Take these steps that we've discussed today and find one person who you want to grow in relationship with, or grow your relationship with them, have better communication with them, and take these steps to start building better conversations, right? So be intentional, come from a point of humility, be empathetic, be relatable. I don't think I threw that word in there before, but being relatable I think is important too. And just come from a good place. I think I'm trying to say too many words and really just want to be intentional, come from a good place, have humility, be open to the conversation,
Yeah.
be open to what they have to say, right? It's not just about you and what you want to say to them, but like Lynn said earlier, active listening and be there for the right reasons, so to say.
Ask the questions. Don't be the one sharing your thoughts. Don't be the one venting. You come in there and be the one to ask the questions. Like, Alex came to me and asked the question, and then his job was to sit and listen to my response.
Yep.
That's how you're going to help create that conversation with, maybe you're struggling with a friend right now, or you haven't talked to your mom in a long time and you need to create that space. Ask a question that they can take time to respond to, and you're there to listen, which can be a really good step too.
Yeah, and it could be scary, especially if it's a relationship or a conversation that you need to have that's long overdue or is difficult to have. But guess what? I like to say it this way. It's scary, yes, but if you don't address it, time's going to pass anyways, and it's still going to be scary. So might as well take that leap of faith, have a little bit of confidence in yourself, and then just have the conversation.
Yeah.
It may not go, I'll be honest, it may not go the way you want it to go, but you're starting to build the foundation, to build the confidence to just take it to that next level, right? Because things aren't going to happen over one conversation or over one night. It's going to take some time. But I promise you, if you apply these principles, if you apply these resources, these tools that we're giving you, they will help you. Okay? So, let us know how it goes. Let us know. Send us a message on Instagram. Send us a message, or leave a comment on Spotify right now. Leave a comment on YouTube.
You can comment on Spotify?
Yeah.
That is very
You can leave us a
cool.
rating too, so that'd be very helpful. Appreciate that. But yeah, no, we're excited to continue this journey with you guys. Lynn, please, is there something that I missed? Is there something that you want to say?
I think we covered it. I know we kind of went a little over, but communication's really important, you guys. So we are going to keep bringing this up too. It's going to be a common variable in all of the different types of conversations and things we're working through for our relationships. Correct.
Perfect. Then the last thing to say is, if there's any prayers that you would like for us to pray for you this week, please, again, shoot us a message on Instagram. Our handle is @eNVGrowthPodcast. You can send us a direct message there and let us know what you're going through, what you would like for us to pray for. You don't have to go into detail. You can just let us know, hey, I need prayer for this, or I need prayers for this, for that. It's just going in our prayer journal, and we're not putting your name or anything like that. We're just putting what the reasoning is for, and it's just for us. We want to be able to give back to people, and we want to be able to connect people to Christ. That's something that we are very passionate about as well. And so we just want to be a blessing. Again, want to be the salt and light of this world. So anyways, appreciate your time. Appreciate you spending your day with us and spending some time with us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, remember, shatter your limits and ascend. Let's go.
Bye, guys. Thank you.